Impact Summit, and uh, the basic idea and intent behind setting up this session is while all the things were happening in AI in the period of 2020, a lot of development happening, and somehow all that is now leading to kind of acceleration that we are seeing in last 3 years of time, and especially this year, since January, all the new launches, that breakthroughs that we see, we are getting the first sign of a powerful AI, right? And now because of that, there is a discussion about AGI seems to be gaining quite a significant ground, right? And although people still have a lot of doubt and skepticism about whether it is really reality or possibility in coming future or what that means, many people are still struggling to define what that means basically, right? So as an overall society, and I can tell about India, so probably we didn't pay much attention when AI was coming. If you don't pay attention now what is coming in next 2, 3, 5 years of time, or 10 years of time for that, that is probably the timeline for AGI, then probably we'll miss on again thinking, talking, discussing, governing it better basically, right? So this discussion is about, one is to help understand for us and for the audience here basically what do we mean by AGI. Can we really think about that right now? What are different components that will lead to, thank you Kenny, welcome to the panel, and try to then find the meaning, possible meaning for security, privacy and ethics basically, right? So I'll like to talk with Simon, with you. So how do you see this concept of AGI, and foundationally how that will be different that we would see? I mean, what is your understanding about the concept of artificial general intelligence? So this is a mic.
Yes, so yeah, thank you very much for having us here, and yeah, like you said, it's a really nice topic to wrap up maybe the conference. So, well, so you know, of course, there are kind of different definitions of AGI, and on the same time, most of them agree that it's, you know, it's about smarter AI than we have right now. We were joking a bit that, you know, on the way, the traffic is really, you know, exceptional, and yeah, that's a sign that maybe we are still not here today. So, but yeah, but basically, kind of among those common agreements that let's say the smarter AI should reason, it should learn. It should adapt. Also, it should transfer knowledge, and also it shouldn't be, you know, very narrow. Like, you know, of course, right now we have great, let's say, areas where AI is really helping a lot, like co-development, customer service, and etc. But you know, it should be much broader. So, and you know, well, don't think that any of us, maybe the colleagues will be able to answer when we will have, you know, and what timing. But definitely, you know, that's one of the big topics.
So
right
let
now.
me come to you, and you look at the digital initiative and artificial intelligence as one of the important research area. So we are grappling with understanding what is right now, but can we think about what would happen in next 3-5 years of time? And that seems to be timeline for AGI, right?
So I'm the one with the date. I'll do my best.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
So first of all, my definition of AGI is very simplistic, and I think that we need some simple explanation in this field. Yeah. And my very simple explanation is AGI will be something that can perform every human task at the level of accuracy and professionality of a human professional. Now, this is not an optimal definition, because people can ask every task. Can if a baby is crying, will the AGI help him stop crying? And people can ask what is the level of professionality. But I think that this is something that we can digest. Mm-hmm. And I think that for me, I understood that we are getting closer there, not from a technology perspective, but from the perspective of talking with real Israelis about their problems. And 5 years ago, when I was telling this definition of AGI, people were like, oh, it'll never happen. Not in our lifetime. And right now, when I'm speaking with Israelis and I'm telling them this is AGI, they're saying, oh, aren't we there yet? Oh, because I thought that ChatGPT can help me like a lawyer. Isn't it true? Now, I think that we are not there yet. Okay, there is a very sharp line between the AI that we are experiencing today and true AGI. But the fact that the audience is already confusing, the fact that people give trust to Gen AI tools, 50% of Israelis trust them more than they trust their friends. Many trust them more than they trust human professionals. This puts us closer to AGI, so I would say that it's a matter of 3 years to 7 years until we reach that milestone.
Yeah. So coming to you, Alexandra, so how do you see this as a concept, but what is leading to this AGI? I mean, what would we do that will bring this age of AGI in 3 or 7 years of time, right?
Well, I'm not necessarily subscribing to the time frame. I think that depends on how much money we throw at it.
Yeah.
And then there are other things to throw money at as well. And some of this, for example, we had a discussion with my team, are machines able to make complex decisions as fast as humans? And in some areas, like, many operations demand millisecond response and reflex level. You can see that machines are quite good at detecting fire or doing very sort of instinctive things as fast as we are. But the ability to interpret context, emotions, ambiguity, surroundings, body language, etc., that's still quite far away. They take too long. And in a dynamic environment, a wrong decision or a late decision is really a wrong decision. So in order to get there, there's both low latency, energy efficient hardware, neuromorphic and edge computing, and architectures beyond auto regression. But I think the researchers in SINTEF, I head up the largest research institute in Norway. They point to promising like hierarchical reflex reasoning systems, embodied multimodal learning, etc., etc. And there's really no real doubt that you will get there. But in order to have the situational awareness like a human, you have to study a lot of data that would be considered private, personal. So there's really limits on privacy, and then it triggers a lot of other questions that I'm sure we'll get into.
Yeah, we'll come to that. So, Mr. Kenny, you must be serving many of the clients right now on AI, right? And every of us are getting stunned by the progress and acceleration of the capability that is happening week by week, basically, right? And that also scares us, what is coming next, right? And when it comes to that level where there is a two words somebody defines AGI, right? So one is the consistency across the domain, that it will be so general in a way that it will be consistently performing across the domain. And second part is it will be reliable as well. So currently probably sometimes it doesn't have anything and it throws output, and that's why hallucination happens basically. So consistency and reliability, that's what the AGI will bring to the table basically. So it will solve a lot of problems that we see right now. We have been also getting stunned by the things that it can do basically. So there are routes to achieve the AGI, which will lead us to AGI basically. So how do you think, from your perspective, the journey that probably will take us there?
So, I agree with the panel that a couple of things we talked about in terms of where we're getting to, models evolving, but you bring up another component of accuracy. I'll talk about accuracy first, and I'll come back to the disruption which is happening in the market. Now, the epitome of accuracy is 5 nines. So for AI to get from 90 to 99%, it took 5 to 10 years. Now, every 9 that you add is another year or 2 years to the point where you get to 99.99 and 9s. So every 9 that you're adding has a time frame to it. And the number of 9s that you add, you get closer to general intelligence, because that's what is going to look at the human brain. I'll take the topic of photographic regression that you talked about. Any regression, AI is right now built on regression. It's built on learnings of the neural network maturing on information that it's seeing. But the human brain it's also inventing, it's researching. So when AI really gets to the point of being able to research and bring new ideas to life that a human brain does, you're getting closer to intelligence. Now, the disruptions in the market that you've seen with announcements across the different players which dominate the AI market is creating a disruption in the industry, and I think it's the right disruption. It's the disruption that word processor did to typewriter, what computers did to word processor, and what cloud did to data center. This is another thing, but it's much faster because it's more pervasive and it impacts everybody in life. So the fact is, people are talking about how does it translate to me. When I say it translates to me, it's about how do we structure processes. Everybody, and I agree, accuracy is work in process. And since accuracy is work in process, we have to be really mature about the use cases that we put onto it. We have to look at the human pyramid, what components of the pyramid that you're going to look at. So the way we are advising our clients and what we're doing ours is maker jobs, which is basically repetitive jobs with little context. AI does very well, but create a controller for these autonomous. So combination of probabilistic and deterministic is what's going to be the near future as we get to more and more deterministic when we get to general intelligence, because from a human perspective, it's mostly deterministic, right?
Yeah, so these are, and thank you all for putting some level of clarity in terms of what this means. And so at the end of the day, AGI is like, so they say attention, right? Ability to give attention to all possible things that people, millions and billions of people asking questions to. But as you rightly say, the context matters. Right. So it's not only attention, it should be contextual to your requirement and your things that you do, right? And third important part which they are doing, and last 6 months had been great months for reasoning that bring to the table, basically. So my question is, and anybody of you can answer this, then for achieving all of these things, so why compute becomes very important? So why you need this much of compute? Why there are trillions of dollars that is invested to make sure that it gives attention to each and every problem better, and it is contextual and give reasoning, and at the same time latency, as Alexander talked about. So the role of compute, what is the role of compute to achieve this? Any of you?
Yeah, so, so of course, if I may start, and of course, please accompany. So currently we are at super high cycle, let's say, of those investments, and most of us most likely also wondering, is it a bubble or when it will, blow a bit, and etc. So, because is it really in some cases sustainable? Well, everyone of us most likely has our own opinion. But still, this race to be number, let's say, one, this belief that if you are number one, you will remain number one, and this momentum, I think, plus huge appetite, all this hype definitely brings much more money to the table than we could ever imagine. And on the same time, it depends a lot, of course, on the algorithms, how efficient they will be. We saw, all of us remember most likely last year, this DeepSeek moment, and there are also other models which are much more efficient. So, at some point we might understand that be a bit over-invested. At the same time, I remember Zuckerberg's quote that, said, okay, in the worst case scenario, I will, have overcapacity for a couple more years, and then anyway, I will use it.
Yeah. Anybody? Yeah.
So my humble opinion is that compute is one element in a chain of elements, and that sometimes we treat this element as the only one. Let's explore a metaphor. Let's imagine that we are in the 19th century, and a prophet arrives, and he tells us, okay, in 5 years, a new technology will emerge that will enable you to arrive from Delhi to Bangkok in less than an hour. But I don't know what the technology is. Maybe it's a ship, maybe it's a car, maybe it's a train, maybe it's an airplane, but we must be prepared. So everyone is trying to be prepared and to build the right infrastructure. The problem is, everyone thinks about it as something else. So one will build an airport, and the other one will build rails, and the other one will build boats. I think that we are in this moment. We know that AGI will arrive. We know that it is soon, and we know that we must be prepared. Compute is one of the elements that is necessary, but energy is also important, and heating and cold is also important. Data is extremely important. Implementation is important. Language is important in India as well. I think that one of the elements that we are not investing enough is the human element. Think about critical thinking, for example. I don't know what AGI will arrive, but I know that already now, for us, it is very important to raise critical thinking among the public. When you hear something in the news, when you see something, was it made by AI? What is the manipulation that is being forced upon me? So I think that investing in education is not less critical than investing in compute.
Yeah. And then another, Alexander, I want to come to you on this, that you talked about, there is very interesting discussion about this system 1 and system 2 thinking. Human is more intuitive in terms of response, and system 2 is more logical, mathematical, and AI is probably helping with that, basically. Right? But there's a latency that is an important area, right? And that's why they're putting a lot of effort on improving the competence in such a way that the latency of system 2 thinking is also less, so that your intuitive thinking can improve with that, basically, right? But it's not only the compute, right? The perception, the ambient, the senses, the emotions, so all that also matters a lot, and that's where the limitation of language-based models are getting exposed, basically. And you did talk about that in your initial remark. So can you just throw light on that?
On the language?
On the different type of the models, right? Ambient, compute, for that matter, world model that people talk about. So,
well, I just wanted to first agree with Mir. Sorry.
Yeah.
That you know, if you are a government and this democratic access to compute is a big topic, I think you can really get lost in just investing in compute power. So investing in skills and leading edge technology understanding in your own country, and participating in the regulatory approach, because some of the things that I care about is that everybody says that there should be human oversight, but you know that once you get into these dilemma situations, like what should happen in a car accident, humans are not very good at understanding risks, and humans are not very good at really making ethical discussions. They tend to go as far, you know, do your best and then let moral luck decide who gets lost. But you have to, in machine-driven systems, you actually have to make decisions about those things. So I think becoming, you know, educating also our politicians to know that you have to make the hard choices, because otherwise the machines will make them for you, and they will continue our biases, and they will, you know, it will not end well. But then I just wanted to share a little story that I heard. And, you know, Michael Lewis, the guy with the Moneyball and everything, he has this anecdote that in the basketball association in the States, they started video surveillance, and the coaches were all making racist decisions and home team decisions. And by showing the videos and by showing the statistics, next season they couldn't find any bias at all. So I think that's a good example of how the machines make people better, whereas we're not able to better ourselves over time. So I think I just thought this was a nice anecdote for this panel.
Thank you. When I come to Kenny, so as we are trying to solve problems of security, privacy in current big capability of AI, and we are struggling to understand what it means for safety, what it means for security, what it means for privacy. And suddenly there's a significant acceleration that is happening, basically, right? So what we are doing right now for security, privacy, which could help us to graduate to more and more powerful model comes in, be it AG or any other things, basically. So can you just help us?
Yeah, I think security, as we evolve, when we talked about compute gets bigger, contexts get bigger, we get smarter in terms of what AI can do. And definitely the same AI that can generate can pose more sophisticated and as we attacks. And when we get to AGI, right, the biggest thing is I could be emulating a human let's say in a company, I could emulate a CEO and take a decision because I'm getting so close to being natural. The threat is real. Now, even today, let's say without AI, you need to be just a step ahead of the the bad actors or the persons who are into cybercrime. You just have to be a step ahead. And similarly, we talked about, we were mentioning about the human quotient, right? That the human quotient needs to get more educated, where there are going to be a set of humans that are going to use the same AI to build better agents to fight them. So now it's a question of the tooling that you have at hand. Even today, it's the tools. It's a human who's building tools to fight your cyber threats. Imagine, in the next era, the only thing is, it'll become nearly close to science fiction when agents try locking humans out. But that's, I would say, still science fiction. But the fact is, as we evolve, we need to right-size the solutions, and that's how we will manage compute too. You don't use i7 computer or to do a simple calculator task of adding two numbers, right? You use a calculator. So in the context of the world, we're going to have SLMs, which is small language models, that will do smaller things so that we can manage compute. You'll have the bigger models that will solve world hunger in terms of how we do with different levels of machines and processing that we do. I think there will be tiering. Right now, we were talking about it's a fight to who's first. So win the fight to first, bigger, better, more elaborate. But now, as it evolves, you'll get the right size fitting to them. Then only it'll be commercially viable. AI is not commercially viable today. The costs outweigh the ROI.
Yeah, and current cost is quite significantly higher. You can do POC, but once you put into production environment, the token cost is too much high
to the ROI.
Right. Yeah. Yes. So Neer, want to come to you. There is an established understanding of security, privacy, safety, or ethics, right? And that's what the paradigm that we at least try to understand right now. But would the Asia altogether different paradigm, and the concepts of security, privacy will be foundationally very different than what we discuss right now?
So, as I see it, when we try to deal with the risks that AI pose, we distinguish between 4 different levels.
Yeah.
The first level is the classical risks, like privacy, security, cyber, fraud. Every technology that we have since the 90s, we need to explain how does it meet the current risk in that matter. And AI is much more powerful, and it poses a lot of more risks, but these are the kinds of risks that we, when we design products, we know how to deal with them. Above it, there is a level of human health and mental health, and we find out that AI solutions can be quite problematic for mental health, can cause a lot of damage in some cases, and this is something that is not yet well understood and investigated. Above that, there is a social level. What does it do to the empathy between people? What does it do? Normally people say, oh, I see that it's bad for my kids. They are experiencing bullying or addiction. Usually what's bad for your kids is also bad for you. And we understand that these are complications that we didn't think about when we code. And the higher level is a macro level. What does it do to society? What does it do to democracy? I think that several countries are now experiencing foreign manipulation, and it is very easy to run campaigns that are built of fake news, and we see that manipulation can become very problematic. So I think that a strategy, a national strategy and an international strategy should address all these levels, and all these levels have mitigations, but they are costly and they need collaboration. So we need to be in close collaboration in order to mitigate these risks.
And it's good that the way you put the structure, right? Things it will do to us, our brain, and the thing that will impact us as individually. And we discussed that in one of the sessions that we hosted on neuroscience and AI. So what this means to the brain development process, if you are using AI for every small thing that we want to do, what that means to society, brain development process plateaus for that matter, what will be in the society, and then what is the macro kind of impact it. So you want to add something on that?
Yeah, sorry. I just want to build on that, how it's not just targeted manipulation or the things that we see in our kids and somebody walking around with a button called friend, and that's your only friend that you need. But also the well-structured, in the geopolitical context, the ability to create completely different information universes. You don't need to be neurologically strange, you just see a completely different view. We just published a paper in Science on these agent swarms, and just reading a book about the Ukraine and Russia war going on now, and how large populations are overpowered by totally different images of the world from what we are. And at least, obviously, your defense systems need to be hardened against those kinds of manipulations, but it's also actually an offensive strategy to find good bots that enter those universes. That it's an actual battleground in and of itself, and it's very strange to think about the world in that way, but I think you're very naive if you don't start systematically working on how you make your conviction of what the world is like also part of the people that you need to somehow, hopefully not defeat, but relate to and convince that things can be better. So this it's not just a technological challenge, it's I would say it's a huge mental leap for most of us.
So Simon, the question, and both of it talked about, the question is like, more we use, more we become dependent on AI system, right? And more acceleration of the people's ability to think critically, that will go down basically, right? The speed will increase the more dependency and more AI become powerful for that matter, right? So what we see in terms of this misinformation, disinformation and deepfake, so probably there will be different kind of cognitive warfare that may happen. So how do you see such kind of challenges the society, you talked about society or individual for that matter. So what kind of implication it will have for individual society and overall the way the world is organized?
Yeah, so absolutely. So basically all those layers and all the dependencies, like you rightly stated, they also, critical thinking, of course, is one, but also awareness, education, and the skills, abilities for people to understand the things. And here I think this audience is tech savvy, and for us it's more or less everything self-obvious. But when you start talking to people in the streets of or a bit different backgrounds, then you suddenly realize that what is self-obvious for you, for another person might be completely different. So to find those, ways, I would say, to educate, to basically help them identify the threats. That's one of the key priorities and also obligation, I would say, from our side.
Yeah. So one of the important challenge of this critical thinking, which I come across, is critical thinking is nothing but your ability to give attention to various different dimensions, nuances, different perspective, different views, basically, right? Where it is tremendous amount of effort that I would have to become a critical thinker, and AI solves that quite easily for me. It can make me to bring all the attention, all the dimensions, all the nuances, all the viewpoints. It can quickly get access to me, right? So even for critical thinking, Kenny, for you this question is, you will be depending too much on AI as well, right? So we need to know distinction between what do critical thinking. Critical thinking is not just getting information, giving attention, but critical thinking is what? So that question probably is a very important question to ask.
No, actually, it's a very, very important question to ask in two aspects. Yeah. One, critical thinking, today, yes, you can give AI a persona, be a critical thinker, give me input, and it gives an input which is pretty precise. But the fact is, if everybody starts doing it, what is AI learning on? It's learning on the critical thinking that it is doing. So I feel that it's a huge risk to society as we start consuming critical thinking from AI, and we're kind of diminishing our ability of the brain to develop that critical thinking that is very necessary for us to innovate further. So the biggest issue that the AI world is facing, 30% of the content it's consuming is AI generated already. So basically you're feeding back and it's learning on the same model. When originally it was learning on artifacts that were built through different thinking processes. So I would say it's a risk, it's a boon because it gets work done, but in over time, it's a risk that we will stop evolving. Because if we don't exercise, the brain is a muscle, if we don't exercise it and don't build those neurons which really influence critical thinking, it will be actually a very big loss to society.
Yeah.
So I would say general intelligence, everybody's asking for it. Now, how do we make sure as computers get general intelligence, we're not losing our intelligence to create that general intelligence again? So it's a vicious cycle. It's a question which we're debating, we're trying to answer it ourselves. Everybody has perspectives, but it's something that I think about. Do I have an answer to it? No, but I feel that critical thinking on both sides is something that we really need to critically think about.
Yeah. So that's what everything that you think as a solution and kind of thing. So there is always this challenge of what it means, right? In this new paradigm is important. So now, a little bit concluding part of this discussion is, can we, this is question to each of you, briefly we can discuss about it. Can we still think about, I know we have been doing security privacy in a particular safety privacy particular way, right? But as this paradigm is new, can we think about some anchor control right now that we should be mindful of, right? That when it comes, it happened, right? Maybe when AI was getting built, after 3 years we are talking about AI governance and all these things. So is there a way for us to think about some kind of a anchor control or some idea, some concepts basically, that could help us to browse through challenges the AGI could throw? I can start with you briefly and each of you can comment on this.
Yeah, so, well, of course, there are some technical things like, the same watermarks or something, labeling and other technical features that could help us a bit to identify at least some threats. Then also we can talk about regulator measures, but maybe that's a broader topic for the further discussion. Yeah. But especially here, we in Europe we tend to regulate and over-regulate everything. So yeah. But in a way, I think also at least some measures here also can be really viable and really reasonable.
Yeah. Neil?
Well, I come from a very small country. Israel is so small that you can put it's like a pin on the map. And therefore, our regulative approach is that we are unable to determine the global regulation. Yeah. And in this AI race, I think that what is more important is the global regulation. So since we are a very tiny country, we must work with positive tools. Say, okay, we cannot affect the regulation, but how can we work together with the AI developers in order to make the personality of the AI more moral, more ethic? How can we put egalitarian and equality into the consideration? How can we avoid bias? And I think that it makes us work together with the industry and together with the academia in order to find out about new consequences. I think that in many cases, the giants, the big tech, doesn't point towards unethical conclusions, but they work towards financial incentives that make AI behave in a very immoral way. If I'll take, for example, the conflict in Myanmar, in Burma, we saw that Meta was not actively promoting violence in Myanmar, but the algorithm of Meta was designed to attract attention in a way that makes the more violent post much more viral and make violence flourish. So if we will be able to promote a dialogue, and if we will be able to be together with the industry in development of new AI, sometimes we will be able to make AI more ethical.
Yeah. So Alexandra, your view. So one is the anchor control idea concept, but second part is how do you get into early? Because we
how do you get it to
early in the game, right? So when AI happened, now we are discussing in 25, 26 about the responsibility and alignment and adoption and governance basically, right? So in AGI discussion, is there a anchor control ways, ideas and way for us to get into early discussion of it? Actually?
Well, I think at least you need to work on resilience and robust rollback mechanisms, a little bit like what we're experiencing now in Europe, where we all have to practice on living without electricity. Yeah. You know, that it's a realistic option that somebody sabotages your electricity, and then looking at, well, how dependent are we really, and what are the alternative, you know, and planning from a point of view where you not only work to reduce risk, but you really work to reduce consequences of those risks occurring. So if you work on the traditional risk matrix, it's always, you know, avoiding bad outcomes, but then making the bad outcomes less bad. That's something that at least we think is, well, the new realities are propelling that kind of thinking, and I think that's important.
Yeah. Kenny, your words on this?
Sure. Actually, the way we look at it in terms of AI, from ethical AI to biases to data privacy, it's very similar, akin to what a human would do. Even today, today we have a standard operating procedure that we review for biases, we review for content. You know, in our organizations, we have organizations that manage this. Now, and the other thing is we train people on ethical practices, on non-bias and things like that. So ultimately, AI is very similar to that, where we will have, you know, in today's world, for the lack of a better word, I call it AOP instead of SOP, agent operating procedure or AI operating procedure, where we have to train AI in terms not to be biased. So I feel that there is a big industry which is in the offing, which is going to manage, it'll create models, LLMs, to manage or to validate that the responses from you know, your common models are ethically right, non-biased. Because today, as organizations, we invite experts from outside to come and see our practices, whether we're following ethical, we are transparent, a number of those things. Very similarly, as we mature towards more general intelligence and the more ways of working, I feel that these control structures will come in cybersecurity, will come in you know, ethical use of AI, unbiased use of AI. So ultimately, it'll be a checks and balances system, and we will see innovation in these areas. At least that's how we feel it. It's an evolving area. Let's see how it happens.
Yeah, and thank you, all of you, to really help us understand the meaning of this concept of AGI and how that will pan out from now, and what kind of challenges it will throw to us. There are definitely opportunities that we don't have time to discuss about what it will bring to us. But then what could we start doing right now? And this was definitely one of the important conversation. This would have helped you understand what we are talking about the AGI today. Please join me to give big hand to my co-panelists for helping us understand. Thank you, Simon, thank you, Neil, thank you. We have some photo shoot. Alexandra, we need to come here for photo shoot. And yeah.
I also request the fireside panels, Hendrika sir and Narendranath sir, to please join us for the photo shoot.
trajectory here, or we'll take some time for transition?
Just another minute.
Oh, okay.
Before we commence the session for the fireside, I would like to announce the launch. I would like to announce the launch of AI cybersecurity terminal.
This is published today.